Hey guys, welcome back. Now I want to talk to you guys about adding some custom paint layers into this so that we can fix any issues with the ambient occlusion map and then look at texturing both sides of the fabric. To do this, we're going to use texture paint mode and we're going to need to set the viewport up. So down here, I want to go to image editor so I can view my textures in the bottom. And then we want to look at painting on our ambient occlusion bake because when this has baked the ambient occlusion map, we've got this dark black shadow on the bottom of these jeans. And the reason this happens, if we zoom in here and look at our ambient occlusion switch, I can turn this off and the darkness is gone, but also all of our shadows are gone. And that happens because if I look here, drop the where these two like circles are overlapping this icon, this is the viewport overlays. Drop this menu down and turn on face orientation. And what this is the blue is the front of the fabric and the red is the back. So when the ambient occlusion is baking, it's baking on the blue side as if the red side is occluded or has no light on it whatsoever. So that's using the front and back of the fabric to make the occlusion, just so you guys understand. We can fix this by just painting over it. So for now, I'm going to go into the texture shaded mode, so not in render mode anymore. And I'm just going to select the ambient occlusion map that we baked, the texture right here, this one. This is the map, and you see on the bottom here, this is where all the dark shadows are for this part that's folded over. Easy to fix. If we select this texture, we view this in our image editor on the bottom and then go up here from object mode to texture paint. Right now I can see all my mesh on this UV layout right here. And this is useful because I can kind of see where I'm going to be painting and where I need to fix things on the mesh. If this isn't visible, just jump into edit mode and press A to select the entire mesh. Select everything and then go back to texture paint and it will have everything selected. If you don't have anything selected in edit mode, when you come to texture paint, you won't be able to view that mesh. So that's just how we can view the mesh in texture paint mode. We can paint on the UV tiles down here, or we can paint directly on the model. So for now, I'm just going to press N on the keyboard to make this menu jump out. And let's view just this AO map. So I'm going to do Control Shift on my keyboard and left click on color. And again, this only works if you've got Node Wrangler activated. So make sure you've got in your add-ons, Node Wrangler is turned on, which it is. Jump down here and let's look at our brush settings. So if I look under options, I've turned off backface culling here, right? Because I want to paint across this entire thing. If I don't have this on, I can't paint on this side of the mesh, but if I have this on, I can paint on this side. Right now my brush is set to black. Like I have two colors here and this left color is my active brush color. So I'm going to set this all the way up to white, turn off backface culling and just paint over this bottom area here. And then you'll see my textures being updated. My UV maps updated here. So just painting around the issue. Do the same on this side. Okay, so now all of that kind of shadow problem on the bottom is gone. We can just zoom in a bit. Right. Now this is obviously, as we can see, this image has got this asterisk because we haven't saved this out. We want to save this as a new ambient occlusion. So I'm just going to go to image, save as, and call this AO Bake 2 and hit save as image. If we now go back into viewing our entire shader, so I'm just going to zoom out on the shader area here and go back to my principal BSDF and just do Control Shift and left click. And now you see that issue is gone. We don't have this kind of black shadow around all the bottom of the denim. The one thing we do have though is the front and back of this fabric looks the same, and as you know with the denim, the back is going to look different because of the weave structure. So the front is going to look really blue and the back is going to look quite a lot lighter. In order to do this, we need to set up a back-facing material, and this is quite easy to do. We just need to create a mix shader in our workspace here. So this shader, this principal BSDF, is running all of these inputs here. We basically want to build a second shader underneath this just for the back, and then connect everything back together. So to do this, let's take this shader, press Shift and D to duplicate it and bring it down on the bottom. Press Shift and A and search for a mix shader. And then press Shift and A and search for a geometry node to add this in here. And what we're going to do now is take this material output and bring it over here. Unplug this surface output and put it into our mix shader right here. So put one in the top and one in the bottom, and then reconnect this to surface. And you'll see this bottom shader is just set up green. It's not got anything plugged into it. It's just a green based material. And the top one is our denim fabric. So this is now kind of blending from left to right on this mix slider. We want to set this to blend from front to back and not just blend the two materials together. So to do that, we can use within this geometry node, we have a back-facing output. So take the back-facing output and put it into the factor of the mix shader, okay? And when we input that, you'll see now that the back of the denim of this fabric has the green or whatever we set the shader to, and the front side is still denim. Obviously the inside of our jeans now is also switched, but we can fix this with our thick export that we did. That's where we exported thick, thin, welded, and unwelded, so that we still have those options to work with. Very simply for this shader, I think we can just connect our base color here, so the same base color as before. And we can use the same normal map output. I'm just going to connect the normal to the normal of the BSD, the second shader. And in order to just get some contrast in the color, I'm going to add first a ramp. And just go down here and let's take a look. So now we're like very gray, black and white. Let's change this black up to like a medium like blue tone. And then let's just bring this white slider down a bit. So now this is looking more like the cast yarn of the denim. Maybe let's switch these two sliders around. No, it was better. Right. So this is kind of giving us the back look now, but still, when we would construct this, we would have a fold here where this is top stitched down to. So this hem here would have the same fabric as the top, and this would maintain the color, like the inside color of the denim. Again, this is easy to do. We just need to make a custom paint layer, because if we look at what's going on here with this back-facing output, if I do Control Shift and left click, I can just keep clicking and cycle through these outputs. And with back-facing, it's just black and white information. Black represents the front of the mesh, the front shader, and white represents the back side of the mesh, the back shader. So we just want to paint these edges of this hem black. Which is easy enough to do. We just need to make a new image texture and a new paint layer. For now, let's stay looking at our shader. So I'm just going to reconnect this mix shader, and we can set up a new image texture for this mask that we want to create on the edges. So the best way is going to be to add a image texture. So search for an image texture, drop that here and click new. And we'll call this hem fold mask, and it's going to be set to 24:8, so 2K, and I've set the background to white, and I want to do tiled. So click OK when you've got this set to tiled, and now we've got our new paint layer that we can work with here, this mask that we're going to create. Come down to the bottom and choose the one we've just created, so hem fold. And we can see that we've only got one tile, we need 3 tiles. So I'm just going to go to the right side here. If this menu isn't here, just press N on the keyboard. Press the plus button. I need to add 2 more tiles, so count is set to 2, and press OK. These come in set to black, which is not ideal, so I'm just going to click fill tile and press with this set to white, click OK. Choose the second tile, fill tile, set to white, click OK. So now I have 3 white tiles, and I want to paint black on top of this. So I've got the brush set to black, and if I want to paint on my image texture, I've got view, paint, and mask here. So if I change this to paint, I can now paint on this 2D space. I don't need to paint on my 3D space, I can paint on the 2D space. But in order to see what's going to happen when we do this painting, we need to connect our mask with our backfacing right here. So let's do Shift and A and search for mix. Add the mix color node, connect the top, connect our mask to the top and our backfacing to the bottom, and set the mix to multiply. So if we look now at the result of this, with the vector set to full, everything's the same as it was, but if I come down here now, like we still have the white edges here, if I come down to the bottom and I look where my hem is going to be, let's just make this brush a little bit smaller. I can now paint on this 2D space just across this hem. So just like this. And now that is visible in my the blend of these two maps together. So I'm just going to paint across the whole hem here, like this. And then we can clean things up a little bit in the space as well. But if we connect this now the factor for this mix shader is still coming from backfacing. We actually want the factor to come from our new mix right here. So I'm going to take this one out, put it into the factor, connect shader into shader, and now you'll see that the hem fold of my of the bottom of this jean is like folded over. It looks like the same fabric as the back. So we can now use this technique to just finish these edges. And then if we need to paint a little further down, we can paint directly on the model. So here you see the top stitching is just a little bit visible. But if I paint extra layer just here, I can now see the top stitching quite clearly. So paint in your 2D space and in your 3D space, whatever works best. Be aware that you can also end up accidentally painting through the back of this. So we'll just check the brush settings for that. I think this is happening because of the back face. If I turn back face on, I'm not going to be able to paint this side anymore, but I'm going to end up painting in the wrong area. So I think this might be better to do in the 2D space and just paint a little bit further up on this edge here, like this. Right. Yeah. So I'm just going to jump around this and then we can save this out and then we're going to look at the roughness and metallic. So I will be right back. Okay, so this is now done. If I zoom out a bit, I can see my hem folds look correct. The construction of the back of the denim looks right, and now we've got this mask that we need to save. So I'm just going to go image, save as, and call this hem fold mask and just click save as image. So now this is saved and good to go. The next thing that I'm going to do is just quickly set up a metallic roughness and specular control to have some more detail in this fabric in general. This is going to need to be done with our original BSDF, so I'm just going to move these shaders above this mix shader that we've created, and all these shaders, these like nodes associated with this process, including this mix I'll put here, I'm just going to frame these up, Control and J on the keyboard, N to bring the menu out, and then just call this backface material, just so that if I need to come back and look for where all the backface stuff's happening, it's happening in here. So roughness, metallic, specular. Let's look at this. Right, I'm going to go back into object mode, and this might be better to look at in render view. Okay, so let's look down here. Let's create let's look for a ramp first. So search ramp, And then let's bring into this our final color, the base color that we've made. So before we went into like the hue saturation changes here, I'm going to connect this last one, this last mix that we had, into our ramp. So then if I look at this, I've got this kind of mid-gray look, right? This could be good for roughness. This could be good for metallic. We can use this with a control attached to it as well. So if I want to use this for roughness and have a really shiny fabric, I need to make this darker. So I'm just going to push this black slider down a bit, and the white slider I could even make a little bit grayer, so we don't have much of a white value in this. If I were to connect this now to my roughness, so if I just go up here and look, roughness here, and then look at the output of this material, it's really shiny. Like this is a very glossy, shiny fabric right now, which at some point you might want to make a special type of denim or whatever type of fabric that's shiny. So to kind of build a control where we can up and down the amount of shine here, like add and reduce, we press Shift and A and search again for a mix color, drop the mix color after this. And then if we look at the output of this node, factor set to 1 is going to be white, factor set to 0 is going to be the roughest. I'm going to set this color from gray up to like a complete white color, and we can look at some of the blending options here just to see if it's going to make much of a difference. Right. So now if we use this control, this is completely rough. There's really no detail in this whatsoever in terms of the roughness. And as I start to bring this down, the fabric's going to get more and more shiny. So this is just built a really simple switch for the roughness. We can do the same again for metallic. So let's just duplicate these nodes, Shift and D to duplicate. Again, take the last color output that we created from our base color and put this into our ramp. And then let's look at this output here. I'm going to slide this mix factor all the way down. The thing with metallic is with roughness, black means completely rough. With metallic, black means completely non-metallic. So we want the white areas to be completely metallic and the black areas to be like the opposite way around. So very simply, I'm just going to switch these around to kind of invert this texture. So now we have like 0 metallic applied here. And if we want to start to bring in the dark shade of this, let's say, we can just use this ramp here. So I'm just going to connect this into B. And now if I bring this up, what we got to multiply, right. It's changing this to multiply. So now my switch is going to go from 0 metallic here all the way up to like a full dark metallic map. So this will now give us a metallic switch. So again, I can connect this output into my metallic input on my BSDF. And let's look at the output of this. So Control Shift left click, and we can see what's going on here. So now this is 0 metallic. If I come all the way down, it got a little bit darker, but it'll be really evident when we drop this down. So now this looks like a shiny metallic denim fabric. Again, this might be something that you want to create when you're making these fabrics. You might want metallic look. So this is going to allow us to create a switch for that. So for now, I'm just going to put the roughness kind of off, a little bit of shine maybe, and then turn the metallic pretty much off as well. It's just there if we need it. The last thing we can look at is a specular. So I'm just going to copy these two top nodes again, press Shift and D to duplicate them. And I'm going to connect again this base texture that we made before the color. We can look at this output. This time we kind of want to go for something like mid-gray here. Like this is far too dark to really be using as a specular. So I'm just going to push this white slider down a bit to get like this medium gray look. And then let's just connect this to our specular input. And when we look at specular, there is specular and specular tint, so make sure you put it in the top one. Let's just drag this up into specular here. And then let's look at this material. So this white side is going to be like the full specularity, let's say, and this is going to be less. It's just going to affect how the light is shining off this this material. So maybe we can even make this darker, a bit darker than it originally was. And then if we want to turn this up, we can do. I think what might be nice is actually to use this one instead of a flat white thing. At least this has some detail in it. So let's look here, Control, Shift, and left click. Right, yeah. So now this is a high specularity and this is low. Again, this is going to give us a slider to just change how the light is kind of catching the surface of this fabric. So I'll just keep this relatively low for now. Okay, and then these controls here that we've created, all these ramps and these mixers, I'm just going to press Control and J again, press N on the keyboard and rename this Metal Rough Specular. So I know where all those controls are located. If we go back up to our mix shader now, our denim is looking pretty finished. I'd say the back, we have a different fabric on the front and the back. The only thing is the inside still looks like the inside of my waistband doesn't look the right color. My pockets are green because my pocket fabric is just set to this hideous green color. So let's just make this darker, like a gray. I'm not really seeing the pockets, but what we can do now is apply all of this to our thick mesh rather than the thin one so that we have more edge thickness around all of this. So I'm just going to go back into like this shaded mode here, like so I'm not rendering anymore. Turn off. If I look at my garments here, I've got thick jeans, thin, unwelded, and thin welded. And I'm just going to turn off the visibility and render visibility of the unwelded and turn on the thick. We do have the same issue before with the material slot, so I'm just going to click the metal one, drop it down with this arrow, and then delete all the ones named material underneath it into the metal one. Then we can apply a metal material from the other mesh here. Zipper, we can apply the one with zipper. Pockets, we can do pockets. And then denim, we want to choose the one that we've built. So that is this one here. I can see this icon's got like a blue denim on it, so I'm just going to choose this one. And now all of our materials are applied back to our thick mesh. So if I look here, this mesh has thickness on the edges. It has thickness around the belt loops. There's thickness around this waistband here. It's not a lot, but it's just that little bit of definition to make this look a bit more real. But you will notice when we view this that our... What is this happening? Thick. Oh, I seem to have done that for the wrong mesh. So I'm just going to quickly do that again. Drop the metal one down. Set this, drop this button down here to choose your other materials. Zipper from the other one. Pocket from the other one. Denim from the first one we made. Right. So if I now look at the thick mesh in render view, I can see my textures are applied, everything's fine. But the thing we fixed on the bottom of this is now not there. The back of the denim looks like the front of the denim, and the reason for that is if I go into face orientation mode, everything is the front, and this shader is working from the back. We don't see any red because the thick mesh has the two backs are next to each other. If I look at this in edit mode, you'll see exactly what I mean. I can just grab this shape, and then underneath here we have the red. So back in object mode, if I just look at this quickly, you'll see the back of the denim actually has the right shader applied to it, but we don't see that because this is still technically the front, because that's the way that the normals are working. So I'm just going to press Ctrl Z to undo this, and I'll show you how we fix this. So in edit mode, select your pieces that you want to flip the orientation of. So this one, I'm just using L on the keyboard to do this. So if you go in face select and like press 3 on the keyboard, navigate to the pattern pieces you want to select and press L. If you set this to UVs, it will just select those UV islands, and we can just go around and select the bottom kind of cuff part of these jeans. We might also want to select the inside top panel as well, and then these bottom ones as well. So just pressing L on the keyboard to select like the linked. And then with these now selected, if I look at this in with face orientation on, and I now go to mesh, normals, and then flip, those normals are now red. This is the back that we're looking at, and the same on the inside. This is all the back. This yoke we actually want to flip as well. So mesh, normals, flip. This is all flipped, and if I go now back into render view, turn off face orientation, the inside of my jeans is the cast yarn color. The inside of my waistband is the correct color. The cuffs are now the correct color. Everything is kind of as it should be. This is when we're working with the thick mesh, which might be nicer for like, you know, a close-up render if we see the edges of this fabric. What we want to do now is make this shader a lot easier to work with, because if we look at this in the editing space over here, this is a lot of nodes and a lot of controls that we need to look at. So if I want to go in and make changes, I'm really going to have to think, okay, where am I looking? What's going on? What do I need to change? We can fix all of that by creating a node group and making this a lot easier to work with. And the way we need to do that is to make sure that all of our image textures, so these are image textures, these image inputs here, and these ones here are all left outside of the group. So these guys, I'm just going to select with this mapping and just drag them over. And we've got one more image texture over here that is being used to fix our ambient occlusion, to fix the back facing. So I'm going to leave this as well outside the node group and just drag this over here. This isn't ideal, I guess, but for now it's going to stay here. And what we need to do is select everything between our material output, which is this node right on the end here, and our image textures need to stay outside. So we can plug these image textures into our shader that we're about to build. So select everything in the middle, like leave these image textures on the side deselected, just drag select over all those other processes, all those other blends and mixes that we've created right across to the mix shader in the end, and then select those. Right click and click make group. Right, and now your screen will make a little change. We've still got our frames, everything kind of set up as it was, but if we press this up arrow here, this parent node tree, like we go up, you'll see now we have all of our image textures just outside of the group. Like I can now drag these guys up, and we have this much more simplified node space to work with. So let me just drag all of this together, and we can zoom in and take a look. So now we need to start to label this and start to expose some things, but what this means is we can use this group to build infinite amounts of materials if we just input different image textures from different meshes that we've created. So for now, we can go back into this node group by clicking this little node icon here. That'll jump us back in here. And then we can look at what all these things are actually doing. So we want to rename these inputs so that we know what all these slots are doing. And that is quite easily done. So just press N on the keyboard, go down to group, and then all of our group inputs are here. And we can rename these based on what they're doing. So if I go back out of this group, I can look at this first connector here, and this is connected to my ambient occlusion bake. So if I go back in here and I rename this AO bake, I now know where that needs to connect to. And I'm going to repeat this process for each of these inputs just to get an understanding of what these connections are. So this one is top stitch, the top stitch map. Go back into my node group, rename this one top stitch, and then so on and so forth. So I'm going to run through this and then I will be right back. Right, so I've just renamed all of these slots based on what they're doing. Just let me get this right, bake. Right, So now these are all renamed, so I know that outside my node group, if I was going to rebuild this, I would need to plug in all these image textures into all of these different spots right here. When we're inside the node group though, we want to bring out all of these sliders that we've created in order to be able to control this. So this is really easy to do. We just go back into the node group, get a bit of space going here because it's going to get a bit busy. And then think, right, what do we want to start to expose? So the first thing we've got up here is the ambient occlusion. This is our ambient occlusion factor right here, this slider. You can see it's adding the shadows in this area here. So take this factor output, come all the way back to our node group, plug this into this empty spot in the bottom, and then rename this one that's called factor to AO intensity. And then to keep this a bit more organized, you can take this AO intensity and just push it up underneath the AO bake, for example, so these guys sit next to each other, and then repeat this process. So also what I would want to do is have the intensity of this wash. So these noises we use to create this wash effect. So take this factor here, bring it over to the side, connect it into our group, call this wash 1 intensity, and then we can also use some of these parameters here. So if I want to change the scale of wash 1, I can bring this across as well as something to work with outside the node group and call this wash 01 scale. So if you keep repeating this and keep reconnecting, we're going to end up with a lot of connections here, but it's going to make everything easier to control from the outside. So if I go back up now into my node group and I zoom in here, my AO intensity is accessible from outside the group. My wash intensity is also visible. I can change the scale of this wash, which is going to make this shader really, really easy to work with. And it's going to mean that we can then use this to not just build a denim material, but we can build whatever material we want. So let's just rename this fabric builder, because we can build any fabric with this, not just denim, if we put the right inputs in. And then we want to go back into this group and just continue to expose everything. So next I would take wash 2 over here. I would take the intensity of all of this. I would come over to these blends here, the hue saturation. I want to expose hue saturation value. I want to do brightness and contrast. All this needs connecting over. The same for these blends here, and the same for all of these normal map intensities. So if we want to increase the intensity of any of this puckering or any of these normal maps that we're using, we can expose the strength on here. I'm just going to run through and do that really quickly. You guys don't need to watch me do it. And I'll show you how this looks in the end, and then how we can use it to make some quite interesting and creative results. Right, so I've just reconnected all of these things that I want to work with. So if I look here now, there's a lot of connections, but I've really got almost everything I want. I'm just going to shuffle up some of these normal strengths to go where they need to be. So this one is the fabric one, which I can shuffle up to underneath the fabric normal map here. So fabric normal and normal strength for the fabric. The same for the puckering. I can push this up until I get to the puckering there. And then the wrinkles. Where's my wrinkle map right now? Wrinkle is in the middle here, so I'm just going to move this up until it sits under the wrinkle normal map. Right, if I jump back up now with this arrow up here in the right corner, my shader is looking a lot easier to work with. And the nice thing about this now is we can change the color of this fabric. I can change the intensity of this fabric color. I can change the light and the dark of it, change the brightness, change the contrast, change the roughness, make it feel really shiny, make it feel really metallic, increase the specular. I can do a lot of things. And now this is just fully controllable from outside this node group. Everything is totally accessible. The one last thing that is interesting to do with this, just had a quick crash there. If you crash next time, just go to File, Recover, Autosave, and then choose your last file. So mine was saved 2 minutes ago, and click Recover. And you should recover at the exact spot you were at when it crashed. So yes, this is now controllable from outside my node group. The last thing we can do here is add another mix shader into this to just start to blend fabrics together. So if I want to add an interesting surface detail to this, we can do that. So let's do Shift A, search for a mix shader, drop that in here, search for a BSDF, principled BSDF, put that here. Nope. The principled BSDF we want here. For example, I'm going to make a metallic, shiny, so bring the roughness down, kind of gray blue material. So if I look at this, this is metallic now, and I can blend this together using the factor thing that we've done before. So now this is just mixing these two shaders on top of each other. But if we add an image texture into here, we can use it to kind of create like a metallic detail on top. So let's see. I've got some graphics here that I could look at using. So for example, if I took one of these scarf prints and I just dropped that into my workspace, just this one, and then I add a ramp, connect this to my ramp so we can just see quickly what this is going to look like. If I select this and I press Ctrl and T to get the mapping node back up, I can add some mapping into this print. And then see how we can connect this to the factor. So if I connect my shader result to surface, I connect this color ramp into factor. What we're going to get now is a metallic design across this denim. So let's take a look. Right now it's kind of just on the surface and it's quite shiny. We can see how much of this is visible by using the color, this ramp right here. But maybe what we want to do is add a bump into this as well. So I'm just going to go Shift and A and search for a bump node. And this bump, I'm going to use the same image texture from before. So this one we're using as the mask, connecting it to the height, connect normal into normal. And now we should have a bit of definition around this second shader that we've built on top. Yeah. So now we've got like this metallic embossed detail across the fabric. And this is then how you can, really start to mix different shaders together and get quite an interesting result. So let's look at this in render view. Yeah, this could look really cool depending on like what design you want to create. And then if you think, okay, I just want to change this, open this up and let's maybe look at like this one, get this weird painted effect. We could add another print onto this. Let's try this one. It's up to you guys to work with, but this is a nice way to kind of blend things together in the end. So I hope you learned a lot through this process. I know it's not straightforward whatsoever working with this node system, especially when it looks like this, but the logic is the same as Substance Painter. We're just building layers and layers and layers on top of each other. These are all the layers, these are all the mixes, these are all the things that we can work with. And then, like I said, if you then just reconnect a different set of image textures into this same map, in this same shader, you can build whatever types of fabrics that you want. So yeah, that's how to texture things in Blender without Substance Painter and using just CLO3D to make your model and Blender to make your textures.